Have you ever walked into a room and instantly sensed the emotional temperature, not just what people were saying, but why they were saying it? Or stared at a cloud and didn't just see a shape, but a story, a metaphor, a question about impermanence? Maybe you've had a conversation that felt off. Not because anyone was rude, but because you were thinking 3 layers deeper than the words being spoken. That's not overthinking. That's not being too sensitive. That's neurodivergence in the gifted range, and it's far more common and far more misunderstood than you've been told. Today, we're diving beyond IQ tests and report cards. We're exploring what modern neuroscience and clinical psychology actually reveal about the gifted mind, why it sees patterns in chaos, feels joy and grief like seismic waves, and can't unsee the hidden architecture of reality. And here's the truth no one tells you. Being gifted isn't about being better. It's about experiencing the world with a different resolution. By the end of this video, you'll understand 6 signature traits, backed by fMRI studies, longitudinal research, and real-life lived experience, that reveal whether your brain operates in that rare 2%. And if it does, you're not broken. You're wired for depth. Let's begin. In the 1930s, psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski didn't just study intelligence, he studied intensity. And he discovered something profound. The gifted mind isn't defined by speed or score, but by depth of processing. Modern brain imaging confirms this. When gifted individuals solve problems, their brains don't just activate more regions, they activate distant regions in synchrony. The logic center talks to the imagination hub, which consults the emotional core all at once. This is called hyperconnectivity, and it's why a gifted person hearing a minor chord in a song might instantly recall a childhood memory, feel a pang of nostalgia, and wonder about the physics of sound waves, all in under 3 seconds. It's not thinking fast, it's thinking in networks. Think of it like this. Most people navigate life on highways, direct, efficient, goal-oriented. Gifted thinkers walk through ancient forests. Every route, every bird call, every shift in light is a potential doorway to meaning. This is why they ask, but what if? What's underneath that? Why does this feel true, not just seem true? And this hyperconnectivity fuels creativity, not as a personality quirk, but as a neurological inevitability. Picasso didn't paint cubism because he wanted to be weird. He painted it because his brain literally saw multiple perspectives at once and could not express it. So, if your mind constantly cross-references philosophy with grocery lists or finds symbolism in subway ads, that's not distraction. That's your brain weaving the world together, one invisible thread at a time. This brings us to the second trait, one many mistake for weakness, but is in fact a sign of profound neurological sensitivity, emotional overexcitability. Gifted people don't just watch a sunset, they dissolve into it. Tears well up not from sadness, but from the unbearable beauty of transience. They don't just hear a friend's offhand comment, they feel its subtext like a physical vibration. They're hurting, but why won't they say it? fMRI scans confirm this. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, shows heightened baseline activity in gifted individuals. Their nervous system is calibrated to depth, not volume. And this creates a paradox. They are often the most empathetic people in the room, yet the most exhausted by social interaction. Why? Because empathy isn't just understanding someone's pain, it's resonating with it. And resonance takes energy. Ever canceled plans, not because you didn't care, but because you knew feeling everyone else's unspoken stress would leave you emotionally bankrupt for days? That's not weakness. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do: protect depth. The world rewards surface-level resilience. But the gifted mind knows true strength isn't ignoring pain, it's holding space for it, even when it's not your own. Now, let's talk about the third trait, the one that drives gifted people to question everything from childhood onward: existential drive. Gifted children don't ask, "What is gravity?" They ask, "Why does the universe care about mass?" This isn't precocity. It's a hardwired need to locate meaning, not just facts. Psychologist Dr. Linda Silverman observed that by age 8, many gifted kids have already grappled with mortality, justice, and the nature of consciousness, questions most adults avoid until crisis forces them. Why? Because their hyperconnected brains don't stop at how, they race toward for what purpose? This is why traditional education often fails them. Memorizing dates of wars feels meaningless when your mind is screaming, but what conditions turn humans toward violence? Can we redesign society to prevent it? And this drive doesn't fade with age, it deepens. A gifted adult might leave a high-paying job, not for more money, but because the work lacks coherence. It doesn't align with their internal map of how the world should be. Critics call this idealism, but neuroscience calls it frontal lobe integrity, the ability to hold complex systems in mind and detect misalignments no one else sees. So, if you've ever felt restless in a successful life, if you've walked away from stability to chase a question no one else is asking, that's not impulsivity. That's your soul refusing to live in a world that doesn't make sense. But this depth comes with a challenge, the fourth trait, perfectionism, or more accurately, the tension between perfectionism and excellence. Let's clarify a myth. Gifted people aren't perfectionists because they're vain or controlling. They're perfectionists because their brains perceive potential with terrifying clarity. When a gifted musician hears a piece, they don't just hear the notes, they hear the ideal version shimmering just beyond reach. When a gifted writer revises a sentence, they're not chasing praise, they're closing the gap between what is and what could be. This is the gift and the trap. Clinical studies show that maladaptive perfectionism, self-criticism, fear of failure is 3 times more common in gifted adults, especially women, often due to early praise for output, not process. You're so smart, they heard, not, I love how you kept trying. So the brain linked worth to flawlessness. And here's the twist. The same neural circuitry that lets them see 10 steps ahead also lets them imagine 10 ways they could fail. But, and this is crucial, perfectionism is not innate. It's learned, and it can be unlearned. The antidote isn't lowering standards, it's shifting focus from, did I do it perfectly, to, did I stay true to my values? Excellence is about alignment. Perfectionism is about fear. So, if you've ever abandoned a project near completion because it wasn't right, if your inner voice sounds more like a drill sergeant than a coach, that's not who you are. That's a survival strategy that served you once and can be upgraded now. This leads us to the 5th trait, one that explains why gifted people often feel out of sync with their peers, asynchronous development. Imagine being 10 years old with the vocabulary of a 25-year-old, but the emotional regulation of a 7-year-old, or 35, leading a company, but crying at a commercial because the music triggered a memory you haven't processed in 20 years. This is universal in gifted individuals, yet rarely discussed. Schools expect kids to develop in lockstep. Age 12 equals social maturity plus abstract reasoning plus impulse control. But the gifted brain says, I'll master quantum physics at 14. Thank you, but I need until 22 to learn how to say no without guilt. This mismatch leads to misdiagnosis. A gifted teen's intense focus on a passion project gets labeled ADHD hyperfocus. Their moral outrage at injustice gets called oppositional defiance. Their need for deep connection gets mistaken for codependency. But what if we reframed it? What if asynchrony isn't a disorder, but a different developmental rhythm? Like a tree that blooms late, but bears the sweetest fruit. You're not behind. You're not too much. You're just growing on your own timeline, and the world hasn't learned to read your season yet. Finally, the 6th, and perhaps most misunderstood trait, the relentless inner world, the experience of a mind that never truly powers down. Just relax, people say. But for the gifted mind, relaxation isn't passive, it's rechanneling. When you close your eyes, your brain doesn't idle, it shifts into the default mode network, the state associated with introspection, future simulation, and meaning-making. This is why meditation can feel frustrating at first. You're not failing, to quiet your mind, you're asking a Ferrari to idle in neutral. And here's the wonder. This overactive mind is the source of humanity's greatest art, science, and compassion. Einstein didn't derive E equals mc squared in a silent room. He played with light beams in his imagination for years. So, if your brain won't shut off, if you dream in metaphors, if you wake up with solutions to problems you didn't know you were solving, that's not insomnia. That's your mind doing its sacred work, weaving coherence out of chaos. The goal isn't to silence it, it's to befriend it, to give it projects worthy of its depth, to stop apologizing for the volume, and start curating the signal. Being in the 2% isn't about superiority. It's about responsibility to your sensitivity, your insight, your relentless search for truth. Yes, it's exhausting. Yes, it's lonely sometimes. But consider this. The world doesn't need more people who fit in. It needs people who see deeply, courageously, compassionately. People who notice the cracks in the system and imagine how light might enter. If this resonated, if you recognized yourself in these traits, you're not broken. You're not too much. You're part of an ancient lineage, the thinkers, the feelers, the questioners, who have always carried the torch of human evolution. And your mind? It's not a problem to fix. It's a compass, pointing toward a world that doesn't exist yet, but could. If this helped you feel seen, know this: understanding yourself isn't self-indulgence. It's the first step toward changing the world from the inside out.